the shield is not a typical weapon. A shield is not used as an offensive weapon often. And in this movie, you guys really pinned down the physics. I mean, there was like specific Jack Kirby panels I recognized that we're kind of being paid homage to. That must have been kind of fun because you don't really get to see that on screen very often.
No, and our approach to that was, listen, he's been modernized now, right? This character, you may or may not know, was, in the first film, he was created during World War II. He was, 90-pound weakling, and then he got injected with a super serum. So it made sense. In the first film, he had a very traditional fighting style, so we call it the John Sullivan fighting style. Then he got frozen, and he woke up in modern times. Now it's been 2 years since he woke up, and if he's working for the most covert organization in the world, he's probably going to be the most highly trained soldier in the world. And now our soldiers, they know how to fight with extremely advanced techniques. So we figured, look, if we're going to ground this, if the character did exist, he would be highly trained, and that shield would be a very offensive weapon for him because his job is to incapacitate terrorists or, as you see at the beginning, pirates on a boat. He's dealing with very dangerous people. We're cinephiles. We grew up from an academic standpoint is how we fell in love with movies. And we grew up in the 70s, and obviously, whatever it is that you love as a child has an emotional impact on you through the rest of your life. And 70s thrillers were sort of a way that we accessed filmmaking. 3 Days of the Condor, Parallax View, Marathon Man, French Connection. Huge impact on us when we were kids. And our father used to watch The Late Show with us. And those were it was like a steady diet of those on The Late Show. So we met with Marvel. They said they wanted to make Captain America a 70s political thriller. We said, well, let's, we couldn't ask for better. I used to imagine Steve McQueen as the character when I was a kid because it would give him a little bit more bite.
We really like the challenge of combining, a political thriller which needs to sort of very, by its nature, it needs to be very relevant and real on some level. And those movies were often executed in that manner with a rich level of realism to them. We like the idea of hybriding that with a fantasy film. We like all through our careers, we like combining like sort of seemingly incongruous things and kind of seeing what kind of new tone you can find when you do that, and it's sort of been our recipe, like even like back with Arrested Development, that sort of the idea of like taking an absurdist comedy and shooting it, mockumentary or documentary reality TV style. Our process is very loose. We just sort of have a nonstop dialogue between ourselves, and we don't have any formal divisions. We both kind of like to do everything. So we just, I know we've been doing it a while now. It's not something we have to think about too much. But I would imagine every directing team probably works a little differently, just like every director works differently, individual directors. So I don't know, I just think it's a function of personality, and then that somehow you turn that into process, and that's we just have a very loose, easygoing process.
Kevin Feige, who runs Marvel, called us because he had watched an episode of a show that we executive produced called Community, which is a comedy on NBC, and that show does a lot of genre spoofing, and we spoofed action movies by having like the show set at a community college, and the community college students get in a big game of paintball warfare, and it makes fun of a bunch of action films from the 80s. He saw an episode that we directed of that and called us and said, would you come on in? I think you guys should be doing action movies. I think he liked the fact that we made fun of the genre so well, he thought maybe we could actually, do the genre, take the genre seriously. So I think he approached us initially because he felt like, well, these guys understand comedy. But our big pitch to him was, listen, if you're going to do a political thriller, you can't have the characters constantly undermining the stakes with humor. And, you lose all sense of narrative propulsion. So we said, it can't be situational humor. It has to be character-based humor. The characters can make fun of each other. There can be relationship humor. But the minute they start making light of the situation, we're going to lose the audience. And then, we're not making a political thriller. We're making a farce, or we're making something else. So I think this movie in particular, we tried to put a tamper on it a little bit. But at the same time, it's a comic book film.
Sure.
You want to wink at the audience a little bit. You want them to be entertained and engaged. And we also say too, look, if you're going to go to the movies and pay $18 now to watch a film, it's great to laugh and cry and care and be scared and see good action, and you want everything. You just don't want one thing.
And my wife says Chris Evans takes his shirt off. So yeah.
That's what she gets for $18.
Bonus. Chris is a wonderful actor. He does an amazing job of sort of finding the sweet spot between like keeping the character in that sort of ethical mode that he exists in, but also giving him a little bit of texture and bite and personality within that mold. I mean, we thought about how do you frame a narrative around a character like this, because Captain America, he doesn't really have an arc. He doesn't change that much. He's all about just sticking to his principles. I mean, we were thinking, how do you fashion a narrative around that, a good story around that? We started to think about other characters who were sort of similar in their sort of simple sort of framing and code. And we thought about Rocky Balboa a lot. And just thinking, because it's all about, for these characters, all they want to do is persevere. You know what I mean? So it's your job as a storyteller to like make that as hard or as unlikely as you possibly can, and that's where you're going to maximize the fun in the storytelling. So our job in the movie was just to sort of figure out how do we keep tightening the screw on Cap, frame him as an underdog, keep him isolated, but keep him fighting, and then just beat the hell out of him.
Robert Redford expressed an interest in it, and these guys talked him into it, and it was incredible because we were doing our 70s political thriller-inspired superhero movie. So it's one of those cases where the timing is unbelievable, because we'd been talking about 3 Days of the Condor and all of these films, All the President's Men, and then we got just a random phone call saying, Robert might be interested in something like this. Might you have anything? And I thought, oh boy, do we ever.
Really? Wow, that's a good. Did you think you were getting pranked or?
No, I didn't, but I thought it was still a shot in the dark, even though we thought this would be incredibly perfect, that the odds were slim. But thankfully, because of the script and because of the presentation these guys did, he agreed to do the part.
One of the things we learned from 70s thrillers is, when you look at The French Connection, the car chase is so brilliant in that movie because it illuminates character. It's about the character that he is so determined to prove himself right that he'll run over a woman with a baby carriage in order to stop a guy in a speeding train, and that action for us has to illuminate character, illuminate theme. Otherwise, yes, it can become incredibly redundant and boring. And these movies are known for their spectacle, so you want to try and find a way that they're broad audience appeal films that you can appeal to all spectrums of the audience. People who want to find something interesting in the movie will have some thematics that they can think about. People who don't want to think about thematics are not having it jammed down their throat.
Each movie needs to stand alone and be a great. You don't need to do any homework before you come see the movie. If you've seen the other movies, maybe there are things you'll notice and appreciate, but we really make the movie for both, for people who are following along and for people who have no idea what anybody's talking about and just want to have a fun time at the movies.